90 hectares of what was the world-famous sheep station of Herbert Guthrie Smith, Tutera, is now an ecologically important haven for native birds and insects and rare and endangered native and exotic trees. The property is administered by a trust and managed by a curator. Its current role is that of an outdoor education centre, where mainly primary and intermediate school children are introduced to environmental issues and the importance of biodiversity.
The property was originally owned by Herbert Guthrie Smith, and he had about 20,000 acres to start with, and he leased further land. At its maximum, he was farming 64,000 acres, and he was fascinated by the life that was around him and its the effect of man on the land and the landscape. He wrote a world-famous book, Tutera, The History of a New Zealand Sheep Station, which is recognised worldwide as a wonderful naturalist volume and has been used as textbooks around the world. Guthrie Smith himself recognised that we probably shouldn't be farming some of this land. He's fascinated with bird life, everything around him, and he documented it in every detail and was very concerned with the effects of the pioneers, really, and what was introduced to New Zealand, and that's his legacy.
I like to call myself the plantsman because I basically have everything to do with the plants, how they're grown, how they get here, what we plant, and their future development and the planning of the Arboretum. At the moment we're standing at the edge of the jungle, which is my nursery. This is one of our rarer trees. This I saw in a catalogue as seedlings, so I bought 50 of them, knowing that I'd probably never ever see this for sale again. It's called a pseudo-larix, which means a false larch, and this one comes from China. And this has a beautiful pale green foliage, fantastic in the autumn. So we've got a nice little block of these. This is one of the main parts of the Arboretum, where we've got many separate sections devoted to particular countries. We're now standing in the Chinese section. On the opposite side, we've got the Mediterranean section. And in there we've got a lot of the interesting fruit trees and nut trees, such as walnuts and damsons and plums and prunes and hazelnuts and all sorts of things. So that's quite an interesting food stock for the kids when they're traipsing through. One of the things that we're developing as a special interest here are trees that are particularly attractive to honeybees. We've got an example of a prune tree, which is called Stanley Plum. And this is a very good tree for a home gardener or a farmer or anybody because it's self-fertile. So you're guaranteed a crop every year. The quince is an ornamental. It's got hidden vices which are very big thorns, and it makes a very good protective hedge. It's a good, tough tree. Most of our trees are labelled either as an individual tree or as a group of trees. It has a number, and that is part of our GPS recording system, which indicates where all our trees are.
The Arboretum's all about establishing or developing something that's very special for people to come and visit and enjoy. The education centre, it's providing opportunities for kids to get out of town and come and experience things up here, like our activities like our high ropes, our canoeing, our educational programs, and lots of other things that we have on site. A big focus for us is environmental education here at Guthrie Smith. So we run a number of programs. Our first one that we established is based around the Arboretum. Another program that we run is our conservation program. It's based around Conservation Week, and that's sponsored by the Hawke's Bay Regional Council and PAMPAC, our local pulp and paper mill. We're just in the process of rolling out a new program on water education. So looking at the lakes of Tūtera and how farming, how climate change and everything else, the removal of trees over 100, 200 years has affected our lakes. We'd have well over 1,000 children come through the property annually, and our focus is probably more with primary and intermediate age kids, but we do have high schools come here on leadership camps as well. The place is open to the public on Sundays. There's no charge of coming and walking around here, so it's all part of opening the property up to people to come and enjoy. Behind the homestead is a block called the Hangar. Guthrie Smith shut that area up in the late 1890s. It's a steep face. A hangar is a Scottish term for a slope between two flat areas, so he shut that up in the late 1890s and observed what was growing back there over 50 or 60 years, right up until his death in 1940. Because of the special nature of the hangar, more recently we placed it under Kiwi 2 covenant, so it's now protected. We're looking at developing a visitor centre with a cafeteria, possibly with a nursery, which would be on the side for people to be able to come and buy trees. So we're sort of 15 years into a project which might take up to 40, 50 years to establish. So it takes a long time to grow a tree. It's going to take us a long time to get this place fully established. So we're big plans for the future.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.